This time I have a Sony SL2700 Betamax. This was the second Beta Hi-Fi machine that Sony brought out. It uses the 711D chassis, 6 motors, direct drive for real drive, capstan, drum, front loading, and one belt for the loading ring. Very complex machine, 1984 vintage. Let's check it out.
Now I've got an old Sony Betamax up on the workbench. This is an old SL2700. This was the first of the 711 chassis, and these ones had plenty of issues. The upper drum getting shined up on this caused tapes to break on a big time basis. It uses direct drive motors for the take-up and the supply hubs. I don't know anything about this unit. It was given to me. I'm going to try to fix some of these buttons because the buttons have all come unglued from the front panel. And they have little indicators that go through here as well that we have to glue them back down. So first things first, I'm going to glue this in place and try to get the front panel somewhat organized. We use some double-sided tape to put them back on. First things first is to remove the old dried up double-sided tape that was used to hold these in place. How they ever thought this was a good idea, I'll never know, but they've all let go, like every single one, even the ones that haven't at this moment broken free are going to come off pretty easy. So I got to glue these back down. I don't know whether I should glue them in place with glue or whether I should just go back to the same way that they were put on to begin with double-sided tape. As you can see, that's what they did to put them on initially, was just double-sided tape. Now I don't even know if this thing works at this stage of the game. I haven't even plugged it in. It may very well be that this unit is fully functional, although I highly doubt that, as these used switching power supplies, which, as we all know, were not that reliable, especially the early ones. Hey, that tape didn't even stick on there. What's going on here? This tape won't stick here. So I don't know what's different about the tape that they use, but the stuff that I've got definitely won't stick. I'll have to find something else to try to secure these buttons in place. Will crazy glue work? Try that. I'm sure there's some types of adhesives that will work better than others. But let's just see if this one will work if I put a drop on the back of this. So much for bonding anything in seconds, so they claim. That's not working either. I'll try using a rubber type cement and see whether that will secure these down. Of course, I'll have to let this dry. but we'll see if that'll hold these switches in place. I'll do the same for the other one that's falling apart here. This is a stop bar, I believe. Stop in the pause bar. Now if these buttons do hold, then I have to just glue them back onto the front of the machine itself here. I'll try gluing this piece back on while I'm at it. Alright, okay, let's plug this unit in and see whether it does anything, whether it lights up or what's going on with it. But, I guess we'll find out pretty quick whether this thing's going to work. See, I fully expect it to do absolutely nothing. And that is exactly what it does. Oh, wait a minute, it does turn on. It is on. Might this thing actually work? If this thing might actually work. The display is on. The display, of course, is showing its age, which is the display itself. You can tell it's the display itself that's getting soft. We're going to open this thing up close, because if you look at the segments, you'll see that see the segments. Some of them are dimmer, but like the top part of it's dimmer. You can see the light is the strongest right under the filament wire. Just the filaments themselves are starting to get a bit tired, but hey, this machine goes back to the early 1980s, so that's not a bad thing. This has probably had a lot of hours on it. Before I fire a tape up, I want to open it up, because I see that there's errors coming up, like the eject light is lighting up even though there's no tape in it. So I want to open this up first and just do a quick inspection of the transport. Notice that the owner didn't even remove it's a Sony sticker from the top. This is only the second model of Beta Hi-Fi that Sony made. It follows the SL2700, which was the first Beta Hi-Fi machine. 5200 was basically a 5000 series that they added Beta Hi-Fi to. This one here was a fresh design, ground up as a Beta Hi-Fi machine right from the get-go. It did have its issues. It had lots of issues. The most common one is the broken guide pins that happen on these ones. So before I even try to operate this unit, I'm going to put it through the paces in manual mode. So we'll just open up the flip-up cover here for the flip-up board for the heads. This was an overly complex machine when they designed it, and we'll go through we'll run it through its loading mode here. We'll turn the loading motor by hand and just observe what's going on down here on the transport. I can see by looking at this that it looks like it's had, may have had the, yeah, this has got the upgraded pin kit. How I can tell that is if we look down here at the guide pins, get a close-up down here, these bases are made out of metal. Find something to point with. So these bases are made out of metal. The original ones, the guide post itself, this pin was anchored into the plastic loading gear, and it just had a metal plate on it screwed down. But these side arms here were actually not there. This was actually part of the loading gear, and these all broke off. So this one's had the pin kit put on. As you can see, the pins clearly have the metal hinge, which would have required nipping off the remnants of the nylon gear for the original pins and replacing them, and then locking them in place with some 3-bond, which is that blue-green type glue that's on there. Mechanism-wise, this appears to be looking good. Now this one still has the plastic gears on the loading mechanism. There was a gear kit to replace these plastic gears on either side with metal gears. This one's still got the plastic one, so that's never been upgraded on this machine. But as far as the mechanism goes, it seems to be loading properly. Let's turn on the power, and it should eject, which it did. Okay, let's try loading a tape, and fingers crossed, see what happens. This is a 3-head machine. If we look down here, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but there's a red and blue wire, and a red and blue wire, and then 2 white wires over here. So this is a double azimuth head. It would have the B and an A head chip, and this side here would be the A. So when you are playing a tape, normally it's using the A off one side and the B off the other, but if you went into slow motion or special effects, it would use the A head over here, so that it would repeat the same field twice, and that way you got field, clear, special effects. I think this was probably one of the first machines on the market ever to do that, because the VHS machines at the time, well, first of all, didn't even have hi-fi machines then, but they were dealing with 4 heads, and they had 4 discrete heads, 2 for SP and 2 for EP. Sony developed the double azimuth head for this machine, and then the other companies followed suit with double azimuth heads as well. Again, another Sony innovation that everybody else would like to take credit for, but it was actually done first by Sony, and it wasn't done first by Sony on this. It was done first on some of the broadcast machines, the editing machines. Okay, I got the TV hooked up, I got the set hooked up, I should say, and I will try to load a tape and just see what happens. Aha. Usually that's switches that are not engaging. 3rd time's a charm. Gotta figure out which button to push here for play, because I don't have any buttons on the front here to tell me what I'm doing. That one I think is play. Holy crap! Well, this thing's sort of playing. It's not playing properly, but it's playing. Okay, so there's not a lot of color on here, but then there wasn't a lot of color on this tape. Try the tracking. That's better. This thing's actually working. Unbelievable. I didn't think that was going to be the case. I figured for sure that this thing was going to require a whole bunch of service. I mean, I see some disruption in the picture there. That could be just the tape, though. Let's try a different tape. Now that I don't know that it's not going to eat my tape, let's try. And it does. Unfortunately, I can't play this because it's got music on it, so I got to kind of mute this. But this is just something I recorded off of YouTube. but it's working. Excellent. Next I'll try a tape. This is my Vancouver Public Aquarium tape. That looks like it's playing pretty damn good on my plasma, doesn't it? Yeah, sorry for all the wires draped over it. I know. Some of you will think it looks like a cord just hanging in front of your monitor. I've heard that one before. It's working. And we have sound. And I don't need to do anything to this other than fix those buttons. So I'm pretty happy. I'll check the upper drum to see how polished it is, because these ones did require the upper drum to be demirrored, as we call it, or so forth. Because this was actually the machine that the problems started with, where you got tape slap and it would cause the tape to break in many cases. One of the problems with these beta machines is the tape had a tendency to slap when the drum got worn. This one's not doing it on this tape. But then this tape's not going into a really high-speed rewind. Let's try another tape. How's this thing look as far as it being shiny too? Let's take a look at that, because this drum might not be badly worn. And if the drum's not badly worn, it's not going to do it. Let's take a peek in here and see. This drum does not look to be in too rough of shape. So we might have dodged a bullet on this one and not have to resurface. Let's get my flashlight and get a closer look in here to see how this looks. It's hard to see without removing this plastic guide. Now this one is not in bad shape. That's why it's okay. Yeah, we don't need to do anything on the drum on this one. At this point, this one's good. This machine may have very, very few hours on it, actually. You know, come to think of it. Just looking at it inside. The drum is not shiny, which is good. Otherwise, I'd be having to do that on this one. But this one looks to be okay. So if I rewind this tape, it rewinds nice. If the drum gets shiny, it starts to do this. It starts to slap. It starts to slap, and the tension starts to change, because the tape starts to stick. It starts to do this. If I just touch the tape, add a little bit of tension, this is what starts to happen. When the drum gets polished, and that will, in many cases, break the tape. This is a direct drive motor. You can see how nice and quiet it is rewinding. These are actually nice machines when they worked. I was thinking I was selling this machine, but seeing that this machine's working, I might just hang on to it, because these ones were relatively nice machines. I say when they worked. Real-time counter. It's hard to see. It's on bright too. The dim is really dim. Again, it's bright in the shop here, but it's easy to see. It's just that it's quite bright in here, so it's hard to pick it up. But you can tell that fluorescent display here is certainly wearing. The camera's focusing on my hand now instead of the display, but it is wearing out. And that's because the clock is on all the time, right? So the machine may have not had a lot of use, but it was probably plugged in over all the years that it was sitting in somebody's equipment cabinet, and they weren't using it much. They just left it sit plugged in, turned on, and the clock display was running away. And it's certainly not as bright as it was when it was new. But nothing's broken on here. The latch that holds that closed isn't broken. This was something that broke a lot. People broke this latch. You know, So that's in good shape. This is where you set your record mode, tuner, camera, or line PCM. Neat thing about this is you could plug a camera directly into it. And I just so happen that I have a camera that will plug into there. So I'm going to go get it. We'll see how that works. I'm going to show a little clip from a movie here. I'm only going to show a few seconds. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I'm sure some of you will figure it out. It's a tape that I had kicking around here. This was recorded, well, back in the 80s, and it still plays.
I want the rest of you cowboys to know something.
Let's go get us an Indian down the alley.
Okay, I'm going to try to glue these buttons back on. Put some more glue down on here, and we'll see whether they will actually adhere to the unit itself. Put some glue on there. This is just rubber cement I'm using, by the way, like you would use for repairing tires and stuff. Stick that in there like that and see whether that will sit in here. I think it goes in like this, actually. This other one seems to be sticking in place, so we'll do that one as well and see whether it'll glue into place, and I'll do the same for the other buttons. See if I can get the buttons themselves to stay in place. That would be great in restoring this machine. As I say, I may sell this machine. I don't know whether I'll keep it or sell it. They're quite unique because they were the only machine that Sony made other than the SL2000 and the SL2500, which had direct drive motors. And even though they are traditionally more problematic just because of the extra circuitry, it's still kind of cool because, well, they were the only machines that had it. They discontinued that for the separate, like just a single motor to drive the take up and supply spools. I'm ignoring the cat that's sitting outside my door howling at me because the cat wants to play. It's not that he's hungry or anything. He wants to play fetch. It's a rag doll, and they're more like having a dog than a cat. He's very annoying because he will sit there at the door and howl until I go and play fetch with him, which will last about 5 minutes, and then he'll get tired, and then he'll go curl up and go back to sleep. But it's work time for me, not playtime. So the cat will sit there at the door and howl, but I'll go deal with him once I get this glued in place, because it's going to take it a little while for the glue to set up. So while this is drying, I will go deal with the annoying cat at the door. Shut up! There, that is how the buttons are supposed to look. So let this glue dry, and I'll be back. Now, one thing about this unit is it's very, very fast at changing modes. You go to fast forward, back to play, reverse search, back to play, full fast forward search, or full fast forward, etc., back to play. It also had virtually perfect slow motion. So if I hit the freeze, or turn on the swing search, it starts out in freeze. This is a copy, by the way, that's why there's some flagging at the top. This is not an original. I go frame at a time. I can go 1/10 of a second slow-mo. And there is a slow-mo button for this, so let's just set the there we go, 1/5 slow motion tracking. Okay, 1/10, 1/5. I can do it in both forward and reverse. So there's forward, here's reverse, regular speed, and double speed. Just adjusting the tracking for double speed. And you got double speed with sound. How cool was that? So what that meant is you could record a program and watch it back at high speed.
Take advice on something like that, do it on the and come with me on stage. I'll be back in about 6 months. We'll get together and go out and have a good time, all right?
So that was a kind of a quick demo. I had to cut that real short there just because of copyright. So hopefully that little segment I showed at double speed, you can hear what the sound sounded like and it won't be affected. Anyway, this was an old Sony, this was a demo that they had. I've got it on my channel. I've got a couple of these up that were put out by Sony to demonstrate Betamax. So this is okay. This is a copy though, second generation copy. I've actually got the original tape for this. And here are the buttons. They look like new. The glue is working great. It's holding everything in place. So it now looks like a new machine. I'm liking it. I guess I've wanted to make sure that these never ever came off. I could put some tape around here, right? Just to keep them in place, but I don't think I need to. It's glued in place now and everything's looking good. I'm going to go to the end of this because I think there's some extra tape at the end of this video, and then I'm going to play around with the camera plugged directly into the front. Now if you see how quick the reel is turning there, that's beta 2. If this had been Betacam, it would be spinning more about that speed. That's about how fast Betacam for a Betacam SP spun. I mentioned before, there's a camera connector on the front that was designed for Sony's 14-pin cameras to plug into. This is an HVC2800, which was the top of the line camera that Sony had. It's a Satacom tube, very much like the DXC1800. So if I plug the camera in here and switch the input to camera, I don't know if the microphone works on this or not. I guess it does. Yeah, I hear sound. Feedback. Okay, I'm going to do a recording on here, and I'll do a little bit of stuff on the camera, and then we'll play it back, and I'll even try the trick playback just so you can hear what my voice does when I speed it up. I'll show you the picture off of here, and this is something that shows up on plasma, but if I showed you it on a CRT, it wouldn't look the same as this. First, here's the image on my CRT monitor. Pick up the camera. I don't think the power zoom works on this anymore because I haven't done a white balance. So we'll put the white balance cap on, and I will do a white balance. Auto white. So I can get this picture looking as good as it can. But there's the shop. And if I zoom in and focus, this camera is in about as good a condition as you would ever expect to find one of these cameras. It is in absolutely spectacular working condition. I'm going to put the recorder in standby, and I'm going to hit the button on here to record. So I'm going to record this onto tape. So I'm now recording onto the beta tape from the camera, and because I'm going to show it to you guys both on this one and on the plasma. But here's just the back end of the shop here, where all my junk is, all my old parts and stuff, parts catalog, and the monitor that we're looking at it on, ceiling fan. Take a shot out front here, stop it from recording. Now I can zoom in across the street. Whoops, I still was recording. And there's probably going to look too blue because I haven't color balanced for outside. I'll just set it to the default. Looking through my stack of turntables sitting here and out front. And here's the bench itself. I don't have all the lights turned on here. If I put on some more light, it'll obviously look better because tube cameras always look better. That burn-in you're seeing, by the way, is on the monitor. It's not the camera itself. Anyway, I'll show you it on the plasma set here. So here's how it looks on the plasma. You'll notice a bunch of lines in the screen. That's actually the beam index tube that Sony uses, the Trinicon. You're actually able to see it because the plasma is sharp enough that it can actually resolve that interference. So I'll record some more. Ooh, feedback. Feedback. Video feedback. And I'll play this tape back so we can hear the how the double speed playback works. Let's see if I can move around here a bit. I've got a few feet of camera cable. Maybe I can get around, get a shot out the front door here. Neighbor's car, neighbor's house. So this is being recorded onto beta tape right now. As I'm recording this, we'll play that tape back and just take a look at it on the plasma as well. All those lines you see should not be apparent once it's recorded on tape, because the tape doesn't have the same resolution that the camera did. And as you saw when I had the picture on the CRT set, we didn't see any of that either, just on the plasma. This was a $3,000 camera when it was new. Just the camera, never mind the recorder. Just the camera was $3,000 when it was new. Anyway, let's play this back from the camera. Okay, now I made a mistake here. I'm going to show it to you guys. This is recorded in the beta 3 speed, so I should go back and redo some of this in beta 2. This is the poorest quality that beta had, but it's not looking bad. And remember the lines that we were seeing in the picture when it was right off the camera? We're not seeing any lines in the picture here. It's looking pretty good. This is beta 3, remember? Both on this one and on the plasma, but here's just the back end of the shop here. I'll put it in double speed. All my junk is all my old parts and stuff. Parts catalog. And I'll get everything on. Ceiling fan. Take a shot in front here. It's recording. There's double speed playback. Across the street recording. There's because I haven't put it on the side. I'll send it to the default. These are my sniper cables sitting here. No front. Just so you can hear the sound. I'm going to do this again. I'll do this in... obviously look better because two cameras always look better. That burn-in you're seeing, by the way, is on the monitor. It's not the camera itself. Anyway, I'll show you on the plasma set here. So I'll record some more. Ooh, feedback. Feedback. Video feedback. Back to regular speed. But as you can see, even beta 3 didn't look too bad. I'm going to do another recording in beta 2 momentarily here. How the double speed playback works. Let's see if I can move around here a bit. I've got a few feet of camera cable. Maybe I can get around. Get a shot out the front door here. Neighbor's car. Tracking. I was trying to track control here. That's me playing with the tracking control. So this is being recorded on the beta tape right now. As I'm recording this, we'll play that tape back and just take a look at it on the plasma as well. All those lines you see should not be apparent once it's recorded on tape. And they're not. Because the tape doesn't have the same resolution that the camera did. As you saw when I had the picture on the CRT set, we didn't see any of that either, just on the plasma. I could be wrong, it might show up in the plasma off tape, but I don't recall seeing it on other tapes that I've made, or other tapes I've played that were made on cameras like this. And I might be wrong, this might have the same tube actually that the DXC 1800 had. This may use the same tube on it, I'm not 100% sure. I was under the impression that the 1800 had a higher resolution tube in it, but it may have been the same because this one was considered their higher resolution camera. There are other Trinicon cameras that had a lower resolution tube than this one, so this one may have the same tube, the SMF Satacon Mixed Field Trinicon, that the broadcast cameras had. This was a $3,000 camera when it was new. Just the camera, never mind the recorder, just the camera was $3,000 when it was new. So now you see the lines are back, right? I'm going to do another recording, and we'll do this in beta 2 this time. And I won't bore you guys while I'm recording it, but we'll play it back and we'll see how the quality of beta 2 looked. And it should be recording now. Yes, it is indeed recording. And I'll do some shooting out front again, and we'll see how it looks. Okay, here we're starting out with the beta 2 recording. This is a freeze frame, as you can see. Absolutely perfect freeze frame on these machines. Really, really work well. Single frame, slow motion. That's 1/10, 1/5. Normal speed playback. We'll do some shooting out front again. Double speed. And see how it looks. Okay, we're back to regular speed. So this is a beta 2 recording. As you can see, the recording looks great. What I should do is I should capture this directly and show it to you guys, but off the plasma we'll have to do. I don't feel like hauling a beta machine into the house. So now recording in beta 2. I was recording in beta 3 the last time. I didn't realize that the recorder was set to the slower speed. My variable speed zoom is not working on the camera because the belt to go between the little motor, you can hear if I turn the speed zoom, it's a variable speed, it's variable zoom, listen. See, variable speed. I'm sure you guys heard that on the microphone on the camera. Variable speed zoom. It was this was a great camera. I did a lot of work with this camera. I used this with my SL2700 for a while, and mostly for when I was doing weddings. It was my second camera. I was using a 3/4 inch there for a bit, but I was using an SLO340 Beta with the other camera I had, and then this one here was my second camera when I was doing weddings. I just used to lock this one off like on a wide shot, plugged into an SL2000, and just recording like my backup shot for when I was cutting away on the other camera, and then I was running around with a 3/4 inch machine and the 3-tube camera I had, I had the DXC M3 for my prime shots, and this was my secondary shot for weddings with this. Of course, things all changed once we got camcorders. Then this all became redundant, and this thing hasn't been used since, I don't know, probably about 84 or so. I think 84 was the last time I used this one. 84 or 85. Anyway. There's what this looks like. It's pretty good for a tube-based camera. It was very good. It was a lot better than most. Anyway, that's this. I've still got some more work to do on this though, because here's the remote control. I gotta put the remote control back together. It kind of got broken, but I have the remote for this. I gotta reassemble this. Looks like batteries went bad in it, but I've got all the bits. So I'm gonna have to try to glue this cabinet back together and see if I can get the remote also back to pristine and working condition for this. I just figured I would show the camera here because of the input on the front. It also has separate microphone inputs. Channel 1 left and channel 2 right. There's 2 more inputs on here, as well as it can use the microphone built in. And I think you could plug it. This might have been earphones, I think. Channel 1, channel 2, and VTR. And that was for your headphones. And there was a 2-channel mic input on the front here, right? You could plug in left and right, separate microphones. 1982 was when this camera was made. I bought it around that time, I think, when I started my production company. 83 maybe. I bought this when I worked for Sony, is when I bought this stuff. That's when I started my production company. And I bought it right from Sony. This is an early model camera. Serial number on this one is 200227. Well, the first digit is the factory, right? Which factory it came out of. So this camera is number 227 off the line. This is an early HVC 2800. But this camera here, as I mentioned before, this was the Satacon Mixfield SMF. Came with a nice carry, like a big professional carry box, aluminum carry case. And this was essentially the same camera that was being offered for the broadcast market at the time, essentially the same as the DXC 1800. Of course, the model on this one was HVC 2800. And the big difference is the 1800 had external gen lock and all the other types of features that would be useful in a multi-camera production, and this one here was the home camera version. And the reason that Sony put this connector on this deck and the 2500 as well as the SL2000 and the 2001 was, a lot of times what people did is they would buy a deck like this and use it in a studio type environment. They had extension cables available as well, so that you could have this in a studio and have the camera, or have this in a control room and have the camera in a studio. And home users, a lot of times people would have a camera and they hauled the camera out at Christmas or for birthdays and stuff, like everybody did with their Super 8 cameras as well, right? Their film cameras. They hauled them out for special occasions. So rather than having to haul out a separate portable unit and haul that around, they put a connector on the home deck so that if you were using the camera at home, to film the kids around the Christmas tree, you could just plug the camera in and you wouldn't have to haul out any other equipment to do it. Anyway, that's why I figure they did this. So with some crazy glue and epoxy and a piece of wire to bridge over the corroded sections of the remote, batteries in place, cover attaches. There we go. Alright, remote control's working. Let's look at some of the features that it has. Well, it has swing search, so that will pause it, and then we've got the single frame advance, step, right, 1/10 forward. Where are we here? Here we go. 1/5, 1 time, 2 times, back to freeze, and of course reverse. So I'll put it in 1 time and hit reverse, it'll go backwards. And it does. So here's our video playing at normal speed. If I pause it, I go at regular speed in reverse. That's reverse play. Back to forward play. Reverse play. Instant changing speed. Double speed. I'll adjust the tracking for that. There we go. Double speed reverse. We'll see some lines in that. Slow motion, 1/5 of the normal speed. 1/10 of the normal speed. both forward and reverse. There's reverse and forward. Freeze frame, one frame at a time. Run frame back at a time. And of course normal playback. Pause. Beta scan forward. Beta scan reverse. Back to play. Everything's working on the remote. You can see if I'm remote commander's working, so this machine is functional again. That's pretty good considering this machine is almost 40 years old. Oh, there was a date on this one. I think in 84, I think, is when these ones were around. One other thing I forgot to point out is on the back, there's a, first of all, there's a sharpness control over here on the back. And there's also the TV vertical lock for stability, so I'll show you what that does. When we're in pause, you can see that the picture is ever so slightly jittering, but I can adjust that control to make it completely rock stable. Something else on the back here, if we look at all the different inputs and outputs on the back of this unit. MPX terminal, that was for an outboard stereo TV decoder, because this was manufactured before we had broadcast stereo TV. They had not finalized the stereo standard that would have been used at the time that this was made. So they made the units with an MPX output. By the time the 2710 rolled along to replace this, they had decided the broadcast TV standard. So that gives you the time frame. This would be I think 84 was when this one came out, because the broadcast TV standard was finalized in 85. It had multiple inputs and outputs. So we had your TV out VHF for people that were hooking it up to an old TV. You had an antenna cable, a 2 converter, and an auxiliary. So if you had a cable box, you could loop it through here, and then you could switch to the cable box or antenna TV. That way you could record from the paid channels as well as the non-paid channels using the tuner directly. And here's another input on the back, or another connector on the back. Changer. What that was for is that was for the optional beta stack changer. What is beta stack, you ask? What I should try to do is find one for you guys to show you guys how it worked. But beta stack was an optional stacker that you put on the front of the machine. It basically, I think you secured it to the front of the machine. And what it would do is it held, I think, 5 cassettes, 5 blank tapes. And what would happen is when the tape got full, if you had your timer set up to record programs, say, every day, and you were away for a period of time, you could record up to 5 hours on an L830 tape, or 4.5 hours on an L750, or 3 hours if you were in the beta 2 speed. But what the beta stack did is when the machine indicated that the tape was full, either when it got to the end or based on the timer setting that you had set up, if the machine knew that the next recording would not fit on a tape, it would automatically eject the tape would drop into a bin, and the beta stack would drop a new cassette in and feed it in. So it had a solenoid on, it had an arm to drag the tape out, so when the tape was ejected, the tape popped out. An arm would grab the tape, pull the tape out, and put it into a receptacle, and another tape would drop in, and the arm would then take the tape, push the tape in, and the tape would load. This has got a solid door in here as well, which is something that not a lot of others had. Got a solid door. Cassette is inside. When you eject your cassette, the door slides down, the tape comes out, and then it's got a regular door in here as well. When you load your tape, and the tape has to go in straight because there's switches on both sides. If you don't push the tape in straight, it won't go in. But you push the tape in, you go, and then that door slides in. And yes, believe it or not, little kids got their fingers stuck in there. I'm serious. They had to change that design because, well, you can imagine that's driven by a motor. So you get your finger stuck in there. A little kid, yeah, that could be pretty painful. Be painful for anybody else because that's driven down. I mean, it's on a spring, right?
So I mean, it's going to hit you like that. But for a little kid, you can imagine they get their finger in there and have this spring-loaded door come up and hit their finger. I'll show you. I'll put my finger in there. Okay, put your finger in. Yeah, you can feel it. For a little kid though, that was terrifying for them. I remember, wouldn't take your finger off or anything. It's not that strong a spring, but just the fact that that comes up, catches your finger. You can imagine a little kid sticking their finger in there and getting their finger stuck in there. Yeah. Anyway, this one's working. Remote's working. Everything's good to go on here. So I want to say thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.